Sometimes it is very convenient to be able to turn a string into an array and use array methods on parts of the string. And sometimes it's also convenient to be able to turn an array back into a string. We're going to look at the join method that allows us to take separate elements from an array and turn it back into a string. And we're going to look at the split method that allows us to take a string and split it into several elements in an array. Let's actually start with split. Here we have a sentence that has 3 words, and each of them is separated by a space. We would like to split this into an array that has all 3 words as separate elements with no spaces. So let's start by creating a new array called words. I'll go to the sentence and call the split method. Now this is a string method, so I'm calling it on a string. And then I'm going to give it the delimiter, also known as a separator. In this case, all 3 words are separated by spaces. And then if we log the new array, we see that all 3 strings are separated and there's no spaces anywhere. The space was just used as a splitter and it gets thrown away. What if you wanted to join an array of strings into a single string? Let's use the join method. Let's create a variable to hold a formatted date, and we'll take the array date parts and call the join method. And we're going to give it the connector. In this case, we want to connect everything with a hyphen. Now what we should see when we log this to the console is the date as a complete string with hyphens separating each part. We can even prove that it's a string by using the type of keyword. And we see that it's a string. So now that you've learned how to do those separate things, it is not at all uncommon to do these things together. Sometimes you have to format something a certain way. Maybe you need some of the array methods and you also need string methods, so you want to convert things back and forth. Let's look at some good use cases for that. In this case, we're going to start with raw data, a single string that has a number of different words separated by a comma. Notice there's no spaces, just a comma. We want to split this array, then add an item to it, and then join it back together. But instead of using that comma, we're going to connect it with something different so it looks really nice. And then we'll print the final result. So first, let's split it into an array. I'll create an array called inventory. Take the raw data, split it on that comma, and then I'll add an item to it because now it's an array, right? So we'll say inventory.push, and we'll put batteries on the end of the list. Now that we have an array that has one more item in it, we can join it all back together. Let's create a report. Go to the inventory array and call the join method to turn it back into a string. The connector I'm going to use is space pipe space. Now we can log it and see the result. And we see oxygen, fuel, water, rations, and batteries all separated by that space, pipe, and space, and the entire thing is a single string. Now you might be wondering, could we have done that by chaining it all together? We absolutely could have. So let's do one more example where instead of doing it all in separate steps, we actually do it in one line. In this case, we have labels, a number of different strings. We'd like to make them uniform using some string methods and also put them back into an array and sort them alphabetically. So let's start by creating a new variable to hold the final result. All caps labels. I'll start by joining it together into a string using a hyphen to separate them. And then I'll say to uppercase and then split them. And we're going to split them using that same hyphen that we put in there temporarily just so that we could keep them separated somehow. And now it's an array again, so we can sort it. So let's run it and see what we end up with. Okay, so we end up with an array that has the same 4 words, but they've all been capitalized and now they're in alphabetical order. All right, I'm going to make a quick commit here. Completed string array conversion demo. And then let's look at the practice. You're given several different things here, some strings, some arrays, and you're going to practice doing splitting and joining, and you'll even get a chance to practice doing everything with method chaining in a single line. That's all I've got. I'll see you in the next one.